Good morning. Hopefully having some brunch. I think it's a cool idea. Not taking the lunch hour, but I'll admit I'm not a big brunch guy myself, so I usually get in trouble for the bottomless mimosas, but that's just me. So I hope you're having a good morning. We're here today to talk about the mail migration, unifying campus onto one platform, which is the Google platform. So we'll go through a couple presentations or a long presentation, a couple different topics, and then we're going to open it up to some Q&A. Again, as Sarah mentioned, please go ahead and drop questions in the chat as we go, and we'll answer those, and then we'll also open it up at the end of the presentation. So if you would, thank you. So hopefully some of you saw over, I believe it was Monday, this came out from the provost, just her message on unifying on one platform. And so the provost has set the target date of fall of 2025 that we will all be on the same platform across campus. And so I won't read that all to you. Hopefully you saw it in her announcement, but just wanted to highlight that we're being driven to get on one from campus leadership. So why Google Mail and Calendar? So historically, as you know, you're on Outlook today or Microsoft Office 365. For about the last decade, staff has been in the Microsoft world using Outlook as a client. Faculty and students have been over in the Google world. And so it made sense to join the majority. And so moving over to Google was an easy choice to make. So some things moving over to Google Mail and Calendar, or as we call it, RMail here at UCR, same user experience for staff and faculty and students, one platform. Unified calendaring experience. I don't know if you struggle with this today, but trying to schedule something with, say, a student or a faculty member when you don't have access to their calendar can be a real challenge. And so this will unify us on one. It allows us to see visibility, free busy across all of campus. It provides for increased security. We have one platform to defend. So for spam, viruses, phishing, ITS can focus their resources on defending one platform instead of two. Actually, I mean, technically we have 4 or 5 mail systems, but really it's 2 major platforms. And then finally, more than likely you use Google in some capacity today, whether it's personally, maybe you have an Android phone, maybe you have a Gmail account. It's the same web experience that you get today. And then finally, just an asterisk on that, this migration has nothing to do with the Office apps that you use today. So if your department buys Microsoft A3 or A5 licenses, you may continue to do so going forward. So you get your Word, Excel, all your good desktop tools that you use today. So just a couple notes on the transition process, kind of what we're actually doing as part of this migration. So in the process of moving to Google, we copy over 3 years of your historic email. So from the date of your migration, 3 years are copied over. All your mail is still in Outlook, still accessible. We copy over 30 days of past calendar invites and all your calendar invites going forward. And then finally, we're committed to holding all of your mail in Outlook or on Office 365 for 3 years post project completion. So that'd be fall of 2028. All right, so next steps. So currently the project team is engaging and we'll be engaging with your leadership to set some dates. So we already have moved about 600 folks across campus. We have, I want to say it's about 400 or 500 more coming up in the coming days. And then we're really looking in the new year to schedule the rest of campus. So ITS will be reaching out to your leadership. Starting in January, we'll start holding what we're calling a monthly Welcome to RMail session, which you can come ask questions, Q&A, sort of like office hours. You'll be able to come to that. It'll be monthly. You'll have a unit designated point of contact who you'll be the one you work through with questions that they'll float up to ITS. And then once it's underway, they will escalate any concerns and issues, again, through your designated point of contact. Yeah, I'd like to introduce, hand over to Lily Barger, our Director of Campus Support.
Gotta unmute. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Excited to see so many people here. So as you said, I'm Lily Barger, Director of Campus Support, and my team does the follow-up in terms of the functional support post-migration. First off, I wanted to let you know the point of this session is to help you feel comfortable. We know change is uncomfortable for everyone, but particularly when it's with something as integral as email. With that being said, I encourage everybody to go to the RMail webpage that's listed here. First off, there's recorded trainings which are broken down into very small sections, which makes it easy to find exactly the topic you're looking for. I know for people who've been on Outlook for years and years, you're often looking for how can I make this like what I'm used to in Outlook. And session number 3 on that website, I highly recommend because it does tell you some of those tips and tricks of how do I replicate this functionality that I have there. So that's the on-demand training there. You'll also see the migration checklist there. And please do review that. It's important to take some steps prior to the migration in order to have a successful migration and not be kind of having a mess afterwards in your inbox. That will also, by the way, be reviewed in detail during the onboarding. We'll have scheduled office hours after migrations, and generally I schedule 2 with each group that migrates. So with those office hours, people can come and just ask how do I do this thing? I'm trying to find this function. I can't do it anymore. How can you help? For technical issues, we'll have ticketing system, of course, and I see that David Lee is on the call. He's kind of our hero in this whole process because he's doing a lot of the work in the technical side. So just want to shout out to him. All right, next page, please. So we wanted to spend some time in this session talking a little bit about some of the functionality we're used to in Outlook and how Gmail stacks up. So the next several slides will be kind of just little snippets, little screenshots explaining some of those details. So for one thing, I'm sure there's other people on the call like myself that use Gmail for their personal life as well. And I've heard in office hours for groups that have already migrated that they get concerned that we're going to be merging those accounts or they won't be able to keep them separate very well. It's actually very simple and clean to keep them separate simply by adding an account. So if you look here, UCR test would typically say Lily Barger at ucr.edu, and then I could add my other Gmail account. If you have multiple work Gmail accounts, you can add them here as well. And then at the top of the page, you'll just be able to toggle back and forth between accounts, but keep things clean. Another recommendation there, by the way, is to use different browsers or different profiles in your browsers. Next page, please. Wording. So vocab, right? It's going to be a little bit different in Gmail than in Outlook. So folders in Outlook are called labels in Gmail, and that takes some getting used to. But what you can see here in this snippet is you're able to create new labels, new folders. You're able to nest them just like you do with Outlook with your folders. You can automatically prioritize important emails. You can set reminders. And actually, one thing that isn't mentioned on the slide, which is kind of fun, you can actually snooze an email so that it will disappear from your inbox for a certain number of days until you actually want to see it again. If anyone practices inbox 0, that's a nice thing to do. Next page, please. Shared calendars, always a hot topic. We are able to share calendars first off with specific people. You can change the permissions just like in Google. And I should call out that Alex is actually adding links to these specific trainings as we go through in the chat. But it's very easy to do that, and it definitely simplifies things. Next, please. One of the nice features in the calendar is that you can actually ask it to help you find a time. If you negotiate large meetings, this is a very important thing, especially with some of those super busy calendars. Next slide. So some people use templates. If you're in one of those departments that's constantly sending the same email out to students, but you have to personalize it a little bit, this can save you a lot of time by setting up templates so that you can just pre-populate most of the text and just add in a little bit. Task management, this is actually one of my favorites. You can have your to-do list just right on the side of your email and calendar. Makes it nice and easy that you can see it all the time sitting up there. Next, please. Document management with workspace tools. So again, this is one of those areas where I see users get a little bit of confusion immediately post-migration because things look different. And really what we have to do is reorient our eyes to the symbols and to the locations to figure out where things are. But you'll see here, You can attach files up to 25 megabytes, or you can use Google Drive for those larger files as well. And next, please. Some of the basic features that are very popular are scheduling the email send. So if you're working at night, but you don't want people to know, then you can use this one. Smart Compose, this kind of goes into those AI features, right? You can turn it on or off. In fact, with every migration, I recommend strongly that everybody goes into their settings and customizes their experience to their liking. There are quite a few things in there. You'll see conversation view is actually listed in there as well. That's one where I think 50% of people love it and 50% of people hate it. That's where it's collapsing all the emails into one email when they're in the same topic, same conversation, same sender. But those are things that you can turn on and off. And you do have I believe it's 60 seconds, it might just be 30 to unsend an email. If you're multitasking a lot, this is a very good feature. Maybe you hit send too quickly or you think of something right afterwards, but you can unsend it while the banner's up there, and it gives you, like I said, about 30 to 60 seconds to do that. And you can also turn on confidential mode, which will put an expiration date there and require a passcode to be used to open up an email. And next, please. And actually, I'm going to hand over to Alex from our communications team.
Thanks, Lily. So I want to just quickly note that we knew we had some time today as far as a brunch and learn. We didn't necessarily want to dive into walking through all of those different features because we could easily take much more than an hour to do that. The training video sessions that were recorded, there's 7 of them and they were each an hour long. So there's lots and lots of training material. As Lily noted, we broke it down into bite-sized pieces. And so I hope if anything that we talk through right now, we tried to pick out the things we thought would be relevant to most folks on the call here. And so those are the resources I shared in the chat. But again, if there's many other features, the training videos were purposely prepared with the move from Outlook to Google in mind. And so I would strongly encourage you to check out the website, check out the training resources. Again, we've kind of chunked it up into bite-sized pieces for those topics you're interested in. And then, of course, we're happy to answer additional questions at the end of the session. But I did kind of want to touch on, before we conclude, touch on some of the early successes we've had. So this has been a process, absolutely. And I think it's important to note that before determining whether it was viable to transition the campus to Google, we transitioned our unit first. So ITS was the first to move to Google Mail and Calendar. We did so in 2023, and we learned a lot from that process. It allowed us to identify some of the pain points as well as some efficiencies for consideration in a broader campus rollout. And it also allowed us to develop these detailed training materials that we feel can best support campus through the process. So it has been a process for us to kind of get to this current place where we've now sort of determined as a campus, yes, let's make it a goal to get everybody onto the platform by 2025. So as Jeremy noted, over 600 staff have already made the move. This is not an inclusive, a totally comprehensive list, but I do just want to call out the fact that all of auxiliary services, their staff have moved over. All of Office of Sustainability, those folks have moved over. And then we've had a couple of different smaller groups that have moved over in the process. As far as folks who are, quote unquote, on the calendar to move next, that would include business and financial services, facility services, and CNAS. But as Jeremy mentioned, conversations are going on at the leadership level for every unit around when would be a good time to move and making sure that we're starting to get those things scheduled and booked out. And then I wanted to, so as noted, that list wasn't totally comprehensive. There's actually, in the subset of folks who have moved, there were some folks from the School of Policy. And I just wanted to briefly highlight some of the feedback that Mark and Nicole were kind enough to provide to us. So this first piece here I thought was important to share. The migration itself was pretty uneventful. So contrary to other areas of campus, uneventful is what we strive for in IT. So I'm sure you can all agree that the best experience would be a non-event for you that requires, very little on your part. And that's really what we're striving for. And I also want to deliver that, at least for Mark, his experience was that the ability to collaborate with faculty and students was notably easier, which is also something that we're trying to drive towards. And then I'd like to also highlight some of the feedback Nicole provided. Again, I'm not going to read you the full transcript, although if you would like to read some of the interviews that we conducted, that is in a blog article on the ITS website. But I thought this piece of feedback from Nicole was relevant because she feels that the customization features are considerably better in Google. She's a big fan of the customization. And I think that that's high praise from someone whose daily operations rely on heavy mail and calendar use. So I wanted to just kind of share that this is some of the feedback we've received. We have been really grateful for those folks who have been early adopters and have come over and kind of learned with us and helped us continue to smooth out the process for kind of a broader rollout. But with that said, I know that we have lots of time left for Q&A, and so we'll transition to that part. So thank you.
And I'm just checking the chat now to see if we have, excuse me. We have one question actually, or a couple of them coming up in the chat. We already have access to our new RMail account even before official migration ? So that's actually something that comes as a surprise to everyone. I see OK answered it already, but wanted to call it out. It is something where you can log in and explore what it looks like already. It just won't be feeding your primary email in there yet. Okay, and Johnny Macias, Assistant Production Manager for TFDP. Question is, how does this migration affect shared directories through OneDrive and Teams? Additionally, we utilize shifts in Teams to communicate who is on campus and off campus. I'm curious to know how that will change. So we're going to take those two questions separately, and hopefully I'm understanding correctly on the shared directory question. So your access to OneDrive and Teams won't change. You'll still have the access there. I'm not 100% sure what you mean by directories in that question. So I don't know if you want to clarify that one.
Or okay, maybe you have some insight on how those directories are used in OneDrive and Teams.
Yeah, so this will not affect OneDrive or Teams. Remember, this is just for email and calendar. So your OneDrive directories and your team stays the same.
Okay. And then for the second part of that question, we do see that folks ask a lot about the availability in Teams. And with Microsoft, when we're on Outlook, those products are both Microsoft, right? So it is pulling availability from one to the other. That actually does change because Google and Microsoft do not talk to each other in that way. But we do have options for using Slack or other tools that do integrate with Gmail to have that same kind of chat availability showing based off your calendar. And we have a couple of folks that want to know, how does this affect School of Medicine? I don't know if Jeremy, do you want to speak to plans around School of Medicine?
Sure. Not 100% sure yet, to be quite honest. We were sort of setting School of Medicine aside to the back end of the migration. We need to have further discussions on if that actually is going to take place by fall of 2025. I believe the answer is yes. But in the early stages of understanding how that impacts School of Medicine, you have a subdomain. There's some different things there for you specifically that we need to work through. But yes, the goal is eventually School of Medicine will also be on Google. Time frame, TBD still.
And then the following question is also a School of Medicine question. Is it easy to forward Gmail to med school accounts? I'm going to defer that to what Jeremy just said, that we're still exploring all the impacts for School of Medicine and how things will work. But the second part of Christina's question is, will we be required to use Google Suite, or can we keep using Word, Excel, et cetera? And the answer is you can continue to use Word, Excel, et cetera. There are no plans to take those away. You'll have access to both, basically. Is there a desktop app like Outlook for Gmail?
Lily, sorry, real quick before you
Sorry,
answer
go ahead.
that, just to caveat again, though, your unit needs to continue to purchase the Microsoft licenses.
Thank you.
So that is the one caveat on, can you still use them? The answer is yes, as long as your unit or your organization continues to buy those licenses. So sorry, Lily, go ahead.
No, thank you for the clarification. That impacts my team. So is there a desktop app like Outlook for Gmail? I'm gonna say sort of. So it's technically web-based, right? But there are things that you can do to pin it to your taskbar to make it feel a lot more like that desktop app. And you can also change your settings so that your mail is available offline. I know that's something that comes up where people want to be able to be on a plane and working without internet access. If you have that setting that your stuff is set to offline, you're able to do that as well. Question about keeping OneDrive. We are keeping OneDrive at this point. Will we eventually shift to Google Drive totally? I don't believe so, but Jeremy, is there?
Yeah, so for the scope of this effort, it is only mail and calendar. You will find Gmail does leverage Google Drive, and so you will inevitably use Google Drive in some capacity. Now, we're not taking OneDrive away from you. ITS will say that Google Drive is our preferred storage platform, but that does not mean that you have to exclusively use it. Large attachments go to Google Drive, for example, with your mail. But you can continue to use OneDrive, Teams, all those things that you use today in the capacity that you use them.
And then Myra is asking, do you have search tips for Gmail? Alex, do you have any of those search tips on the website already? It might be something we should actually add if they're not there.
Yeah, there is a portion of the training that covers how to search effectively in Gmail, and I believe we may have a couple of FAQs on it. But if you find that those resources don't provide any additional insight on how to more effectively search, please let us know, and we're happy to provide some additional resources and look into it.
Thank you. And I will call this one out. Okay's already answered it, but does Gmail allow read receipts or delivery receipts? And the answer is yes, it does. Okay, appreciate the feedback provided, but was any anonymous feedback collected from staff who already migrated over, specifically about the most challenging issues with the transition? I don't believe we've done anonymous surveys. What we've done is gotten a lot of that feedback in the office hours. I don't know,
Well-
Alex, if there's plans for that or?
Well, I will say that I wouldn't say it's truly anonymous, but because the way that we've been migrating folks has been working through a point of contact and all issues have been escalated to them, we have received a lot of feedback where we don't necessarily know who's providing that feedback. It's just being escalated to us through the lead. So we have certainly ran into, I would say, more so specific challenges and use cases that folks are bringing up and escalating that they want us to be able to address. I don't know, Jeremy, okay, if you've heard any more in terms of the actual user experience being kind of escalated to us that way?
I have not, Alex. I would say, and just as a reminder, ITS did make this transition first. And I'll be honest, a lot of what we have out there, the material that we have out there came from some of the pain points we ran into. It was not the smoothest transition for ITS. I think for different individuals, it was different and more challenging. For example, I'm a Microsoft guy, always been. I did not use Google personally. So that was a huge switch for me. Coming from the Microsoft world, I've been using 25 years professionally. So we took a lot of those lessons learned. So while it wasn't anonymous, we kind of had our own complaint sessions within ITS and kind of worked through those different challenges that we had. And you'll see that in some of the documentation we have. Some of the pre-migration checklist was really formed from experiences that we ran through. And we've added as we've done these migrations. So we came up with an issue maybe with a department. Oh no, we need to add that in. So we add that into the checklist. And so again, not anonymous, but there were challenges, just being perfectly honest, and we worked through those and kind of built lessons learned as we went.
And if I could, I'll just piggyback on what Jeremy's saying there. With ITS's transition, we didn't have the training yet. We didn't have the consultant that created the hands-on training specific for UCR. We didn't have the website. We didn't have all of this back information that we're giving you ahead of time. So we really kind of dove into the pool and then tried to learn how to swim. And what you're seeing, to Jeremy's point, is a result of that. All of the pain points that we experienced, have now been addressed and are captured within our website and within the documents we share. But after every migration, we are adding to that documentation as well, as we learn new things. It's a funny thing about email, people use it in very different ways, and some of them are surprising. So it's a good thing to keep getting that feedback for sure. So Sean, I want to clarify, you're asking about my comment with the chat feature and Microsoft Teams. So my point in that comment was that your calendar, once you're in Gmail, will not be fed to the Teams app. So they won't be linked together. So your availability won't be accurate on Teams anymore. And what we recommend is that you consider potentially, if that's a very important thing to you, that you consider potentially switching to Slack or one of the other chat tools that does allow that integration. But you don't have to. You can keep the chat feature. You can keep using Teams. It's just that that calendar link will be broken. And Tom, if we have shared email accounts, will these be migrated over and be used in the same way? Oops, I should scroll further. Okay, so I already answered it. Yes, the answer is yes. Will there also be the ability to use Google Chat and Google Meet? The answer is yes. And that actually does bring up one thing that might be further down in the questions, but I'll bring it up now. There are plugins for Zoom and other tools so that you can have that same experience of being able to schedule a Zoom meeting from your email, but the default is actually Google Meet because it's a Google product. So yes, you can use them though. Zoom and Gmail calendars. Oh, it's right there. Silvana must have read my mind. Yes, they can still be linked together. All right. So Maha says, I've noted that the red emails disappear. Where are they going? Sometimes I search and can't find them. Very frustrating. I would recommend actually, Maha, if you wouldn't mind emailing me separately, that's probably a setting that needs to be changed because that is not a design feature. It's probably just a setting.
And I want to quickly note on that, Google is, as Nicole's feedback stated, Google is much more customizable. And so again, you can kind of replicate your inbox view to mirror what you saw in Outlook, but there's a lot of other options for how you want to set up your inbox views and how you're sort of organizing and looking at information, and even whether you want to continue to thread emails together. So if those are features that are important to you or you want to explore, again, we have some training available, and Lily has been great about going through that with folks during the office hours if you would like that more hands-on kind of touch.
And then it looks like Tom and Maha actually have very similar questions. So if we have email messages from 3+ years ago that we want to keep, how does that work? First thing is the Outlook application is not going away right away. I believe, Jeremy, we've committed to 3 years of keeping it at least.
3 years post-project. So
Post-project.
we're targeting, to be quite frank, August of 25 to, albeit the provost said fall. In order to make that happen, ITS is shooting for the end of August to have everyone moved. So it would be 3 years post that that date when all of campus is there. So that would be August, fall of 2028.
And for both of you, part of the reason that we're pushing it out for 3 years is that we want to be able to make a very good recommendation about the best practices around where to keep those emails if you need to. Again, we've run into some folks who have emails, you know, going back 20 years and have various reasons why it's necessary to keep them in particular formats. So it is something that we're very aware of, and we will be putting out recommendations about that down the road. When will our Outlook emails disappear? Again, we've committed to 3 years at this point. I would recommend if you have things in there that are very large and very important, then you download them and put them in an alternate storage. If you have existing email distribution list established for the department, will those be affected? I'm going, oops, sorry, it's already been answered. Will not be affected. And See, now I'm gonna have to scroll and see if OK already answered them. Okay, it looks like there's a very lengthy answer there about the labels. So if you want to take a minute to read through that, that would be good.
Lily,
What? Yeah,
can
go
I
ahead.
just ask, for the sake of the recording, can you read the
Read it out.
question and answer? Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. I didn't know
Thank
if
you.
I was boring you on that. So I use Gmail at home, but the labels don't seem to move emails out of my inbox like folders do. Do we still need to drag the email to the label or the folder? And David has answered that labels do not move items. The inbox is the filing cabinet where all of the messages are held. When you apply a label to a message, it does not move. It just gives you a way to filter and search for things that are tagged with that label. If you do want to move messages out of the inbox and not apply a label, you need to choose the archive option on the message. It will still be searchable there. And then Alex has contributed too that you can also apply a filter rule that will auto label, but then archive, as David is suggesting.
Or skip, which is what OK shared.
And then OK is saying you can also use a filter rule to have it skip the inbox.
Yeah, and I will say, I know right now folks have their Outlook set up the way that they like to view mail. Unfortunately, this transition will require a little bit of upfront investment in terms of changing your settings to the way that you'd prefer to view mail. So I know that for me, I took some time to go through and not only identify the labels that I wanted. So fortunately, during this transition, your folders will move as labels. Again, as Jeremy stated, we didn't have any of that, so I had to start my labels from scratch. But that also meant that I learned how to apply the filtering rules, and so I was also a little bit annoyed by that, Nicole. And so I realized that if I just set up my filters correctly, that it would not just label it, but it would actually skip it from my inbox so that I could more efficiently organize mail and not feel overwhelmed by my primary inbox, if that makes sense.
Okay, and then Christina's asking, when will students no longer have access to Outlook? And we've requested that their ucr.edu be forwarded to medschool.ucr.edu. Should we also request that their Gmail be forwarded? So actually, Christina, students are already on Gmail. And I should point out that when you all migrate, your email address doesn't change. It doesn't change to @gmail.com or anything like that. It will still be at ucr.edu.
Christina, are you referring to student employees?
Just our new graduate students, we requested because we were trying to avoid them missing important emails from med school and having to check 2 separate inboxes. We requested that their UCR emails be forwarded to med school, so that they can continue just only checking their med school account. But I wasn't sure how that's done in Gmail. I provided instructions on Outlook, but I didn't realize that I should have done it for Gmail as well. I just don't know how to do that, or if it's possible to forward to external inboxes in Gmail.
It is possible to forward to external in Gmail. I don't know if Jeremy, you want to add anything to that regarding the med school application specifically, or you feel that's a complete answer?
Complete, Christina, we'll have to follow back up with you on that. Again, we're going to work through the future for med school there. But in general, I mean, to answer your question, when it will go away, I believe the med school IT is creating those accounts on their own Outlook or Office 365 tenant today. So those would continue to exist until we actually move the whole med school subdomain over to Google. So the process you're doing right now, I would say continue to do that. And then if you need any help with the forwarding from Google, please feel free to reach out to us. We can walk you through that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then so Sarah's asking, how can we access archived Outlook email folders? And OK has answered the same way that you access your Outlook email now. You can use the Outlook client or use the web. And again, that would be in that 3-year period that we're talking about.
And I think Nicole asked a question above that, unless I
I'm
missed it.
seeing, did I miss one above that? Let's see. Sarah, there's one below from Nicole.
Oh, maybe they're different orders on our chat.
Okay, this one says, is it easy to migrate from OneDrive to Google Drive? I'm going to tell you from my experience, It can be, but it depends. It depends on how much you're migrating, and what that content looks like. So when I was working in advancement, we migrated everybody, actually the other way. We were going from Google Drive to OneDrive at the time. And it was challenging because we were migrating the entire organization over, and there was a lot of historical data. When you're using just your own personal, it can be pretty simple, but again, it just depends on how big your files are and how many you have. It's more a matter of time. I don't know if your team wants to add anything to that, okay, or
Yeah, I think you got it correct. It depends, right? It could be as easy as drag and drop. It could also be just setting it up together to move it, but it can be easy if you have, especially if you don't have a lot of data. You could just set it up as a drag and drop. Literally drag a folder and just drop it in Google Drive, and that moves it over.
But just to reiterate, you do not have to move from OneDrive to Google Drive.
correct. Elaine, you're asking, is there a quick steps feature in Gmail that's similar to Outlook to move an email to a label with one click instead of dragging it to the label? My experience is that you can either drag it or you can right click on the email, and then you can click move to from there and choose your label.
It's, also, there is also a button at the top that is called label. You can click it and select the label for that email.
Oh, when you're in the actual email, yep.
Yes.
Thank you. And we've got Myra, is there a way to link banner to our Gmail now when we click on an email address from the student profile? By example, it currently has an Outlook pop-up, so I wasn't sure if this would only happen once the entire campus migrates. So what you're talking about there is another setting, right? It's what you set as your default mail client. So I've got it set on my computer as Gmail, and it does pop open Gmail now, but that would be a setting that needs to be adjusted. And okay, let's see. Nicole says, was wondering if we should bother to migrate OneDrive to Google Drive during the migration or pre-migration, or maybe not bother at this time. I've been saying everything in OneDrive since COVID, same. I think at this point, that's a matter of preference for you. I don't know what the plans are, if any, down the road to say that we would need you to do that. I think the only thing it could make easier is sometimes the integrations for the documents and that sort of thing. But I don't.
Sorry, if I could just add on to that, Nicole, I would just say, we're not looking to change really how you work. I understand we're changing mail and calendaring. But if your workflow has even Microsoft Office tools, OneDrive is probably the better place for you to be. Google Drive does work with those, but that in your workflow, that might be the better solution. If you find yourself using Google Workspace more often, or 50-50, whatever it may be, move it over. It would make sense, but it would be whatever's least impactful to your day-to-day business and how you work.
And that does bring up a good point. So if you're using Office on your computer and you have the autosave function that you're using, you would want to stay with Drive for it to continue to autosave to Drive. And same with the Google. If you're using Google for your documents, you'd want to use Google Drive to enable that autosave. Sean is asking, how will this work with direct reports? I support 2 assistant deans and can currently view their calendars along with mine. So calendar delegation is still possible. And it would just be a matter of the assistant deans delegating their calendars to you. They can also delegate email if necessary, but they can delegate their calendars so you can see it just the same. How will that look in the view? I believe there are different tabs at the top. I haven't actually looked at that for a while. Is that right, Alex?
My understanding is it's the toggle function, but David, I would like for you to confirm that.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, when you toggle, it opens a new tab in the browser.
And you're asking, do we have to toggle or can they be viewed side by side? So if the calendars are shared with you, you can view the calendars side by side as well. But if you're actually wanting to work on their account as a delegate, you would open via the toggle. Okay, and so Nicole says, Outlook tasks have never been very efficient for me. So I recently started using Slack to-do lists. Are Google task lists any better? I like the Google task list. Although I clearly have trouble saying it. I like it because there's a couple of things you can do. One is you can right click on an email and create a task out of it. And that task is then linked back to that email. So you have the history in there in your to-do list. So I like it for that reason. I find it's easy to use there. I have used the list in Slack as well. But because I'm in my email so often, I just prefer the one in Google. I didn't actually use Outlook tasks very often because I didn't find them to really stick out to me much.
Yeah, I'll echo that, Nicole. I use both currently. Slack lists I use primarily for project work, and that just works better for my team. But for my own personal to-do list, I really enjoy Google Tasks. As Lily noted, it's really easy to create an action item from an email. You're setting dates and times, and so you're getting notified. You're seeing it in red if it's past due. So that's been my experience, and I like it.
Mm-hmm. And Mary Bass, nice to see you. It's been a couple of years. And it is not a silly question. School of Medicine has certain requirements in place for using our ucr.edu and medschool.edu emails due to HIPAA. Will we have the same protection with the Gmail migration? I'm going to say the answer will be yes, but I'll let Jeremy speak to that more.
Yes, the short answer is yes. Short answer is yes. I know Dwight Kramer, our CISO, is working through data loss prevention, DLP, and we're enabling that in Outlook today for the School of Medicine. We're also exploring that in Google as well. And so that does help with that, but Google is HIPAA compliant as well. So those same protections would be in place.
And that looks like the end of the questions in chat. I want to open it up in case anyone doesn't feel like typing. Oh, wait, we got one more. I got checked. Will current contacts move over to Google from Outlook? The directories, yes. For ones that they've saved individually, actually, I haven't gotten this question before. I think the answer is yes, but
Yeah, we migrate contacts.
thank you.
The only thing that doesn't migrate, if you're using like the Outlook client on your desktop and you have like the autocomplete when you type in an individual's name, but you didn't save it as an actual contact, you're just kind of relying on that autocomplete list. That autocomplete list does not transfer. So you'd want to make sure that you save those individuals as contacts, and then those would transfer.
And then I just want to draw attention to back to Sean's question about the calendars and how to view them. David's added some context there, so you can view multiple calendars side by side if you were viewing a single day. Sorry, the chat thing keeps getting away. Elsewhere, or by monthly views. Sorry, the Zoom is disagreeing with me. Else, weekly or monthly views are stacked on each other with different colors for each calendar. Thanks, Nicole. Anything else? Are you anxious? Our goal here, like I said, is to help you get some familiarity with it. I think it's normal. Thank you for being honest in the chat there. It's normal to be anxious. One thing that I keep reminding people, especially pre-migration and in our office hours after, is obviously our core functionality is not doing email. So it's normal to have the discomfort that a tool that you use and you use fairly seamlessly, you now have to relearn. And so I know early on, everyone is in the situation where they're just needing to do something quickly, and all of a sudden they're slowed down by the tool that they're trying to use because they're not familiar with where to look or what to do. I will tell you, after being on it for a year, I actually, every once in a while, I have to go back to Outlook and I can't remember how to get to the calendar, or I can't remember how to do something in Outlook because now that's gone and it's been so habitual now to be in Gmail all the time. So it does get better, but those first I would say the first couple of days can be uncomfortable as you get used to things. And so we always encourage you to ask those questions, even if they seem really simple, like where is the button to go to the next emails? Because that's in a different place. So
Lily, if I could add really quick, we got a minute, right?
Mhm.
We kind of didn't go into it on the migration, but typically when you migrate, so whether it's your org or your department, when they migrate, we'd like to do Thursday evenings. And the reason why we choose Thursdays is one, it gives us some time over the weekend to migrate your mail. It's not instantaneously there on Friday, but it does give you an opportunity when you come in Friday morning to do all that playing that you're going to do, all the discovery, all the, oh crap, where's everything now? And hopefully Friday's a light day for you. So it gives you that day to get familiar with it. So ideally, come Monday morning, the Monday after migration, you come back to work and you hit the ground running. So that's one of the reasons why we've chosen that. And so hopefully that will help ease it a little bit. You'll just kind of go into the migration knowing you're going to have one day at least of hopefully some downtime, some time to familiarize yourself with Google, and then hopefully be off to the races. I know that's something that we all went through at ITS, where it took us a day or two to set everything up the way we wanted, and then we were pretty comfortable by day 3. So
yeah, that is definitely true. And like I mentioned earlier with the office hours, typically we see high attendance in the first one, and then nobody comes to the second one. We had that experience again today with with our last migration where they're okay now. And then Lorelei asked about recalling emails. We have that 30 to 60 seconds to undo. I don't know if there's anything additional to that. Maybe David or OK does. I never had great success recalling emails in Outlook. I'll just say that out loud. But I don't know if Google touts anything other than that undo. I don't know. OK, do you have anything on that? Is he still here? He might have had to leave. Well, I will follow up and double check on that one. But I think it's just that short time period. Like Maha asked, how do we reach you afterwards? Alex will be sharing out the next office hour sessions that we'll have. In addition to office hours, we will also, you can always call Bear Help, you can submit a ticket. But I will say that during the actual migration for your groups, there's the initial pre-migration meeting on that Thursday that Jeremy mentioned. Then there's a post-migration meeting the next day with the leads checking to see technically is everything working? Can everybody log in? As there always is anyone crying or screaming? So we do that. And then we quickly in the next few days do two office hours that are open at different times. But we call that our hypercare period post-migration, where you get kind of a little bit more personalized support on things. Okay, let me see more chat. All right, well, thank you all for attending. And thank you for the participation with all the questions too.
yeah.
I'm sure Alex will be taking those questions that were in here and making sure that they're all in our FAQs. So so that would be a good thing to check
Yes.
out as well.
And I know there were a couple ones where I direct message folks where we may follow up just to make sure we answered your question fully. So thank you all. I appreciate the engagement.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for inviting us. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Thank you, guys.
And just to call out Sarah's note here for the recording, join staff assembly for next month's Brunch and Learn, which is also featuring ITS, November 14th at 11 a.m. regarding cybersecurity and the new UC requirements. So there's a registration link there as well. And thank you again, Sarah and staff assembly for having us.
Thank you, ITS. It's great information. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Everybody have a great rest of your Wednesday.